Welcome to the ParentU podcast, where we want to frame the challenges of the teenage years for parents to see these years as a great work of sanctification in their lives and have a deeper understanding of each other and, most importantly, grow together in the grace of Jesus Christ. I'm Mark Long, and 5 years ago I approached the leadership at Mountain Presbyterian Church in Birmingham, Alabama, about a calling to pursue the hearts of parents and families with teenagers and to equip them to be proactive rather than reactive in their parenting.
So my husband and I were talking the other day, and when I'm on Instagram, I get a lot of ads for shoes, a lot of ads for purses, a lot of ads for traveling, and my husband gets naked women.
This is Katherine Dix.
Pornography is not something that you have to leave your house, go across the street, put a hat over your head, pay for. It actually comes after men. It is actually targeting men, specifically young men.
Katherine serves as a missionary in the fight against human trafficking and sexual exploitation. She recently gave a talk as part of OMPC's Global Missions Conference to reveal the truth about the link between pornography and human trafficking. We selected some of the most applicable segments to provide useful information in conversations with your son or daughter.
There's about 4.8 million people who are trapped and forced into sexual exploitation globally. It's a $99 billion industry. It means that exploiting vulnerable people for profit in the sex industry is a sure way to make a lot of money. If this is such a global problem, if this is happening in Alabama, if it's happening in Birmingham, the question is where does this demand come from? And research is showing that it's coming from pornography. If you sell one woman, you get her for about 7 years max. But if you get it online, get it videotaped, you can do it for decades. So these are some quotes from Exodus Cry, and their 4 points are: many trafficking victims appear in amateur porn. Trafficking also occurs in mainstream porn, and porn fuels the demand for sex trafficking, and porn is used to groom victims, especially children. One thing that's really difficult is specifically young men who are typing in specific things into YouTube or Google. They prefer amateur, because they don't like the violence. They don't like the Hollywood pornography. And so, our 8, 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old boys are looking at literal trafficking. If we don't talk about these issues ever until there's an addiction problem, and then creating isolation for these young men, and then creating dependence and addiction, then we're just fueling the demand, to be quite honest. And so this is why it's so important to be talking about this. As I move forward, I'm going to talk about some difficult things, some hard things, and I just want to be really clear that my goal is to not have an ounce of shame come out of my mouth towards men. Anti-trafficking is not a war against men. Satan wants to destroy. He wants to break apart men and women. He wants to break apart marriages. He wants to break apart families. And so when we're talking about these things, please know that the enemy is not you, collective or personal, that we are fighting against spiritual forces. So when I talk about the things I'm talking about, I hope that you do not feel shame or any sort of targeting. My hope is that your eyes will be opened and you can start asking questions and you can learn more. The first is to examine your heart. Proverbs 29, who can say, I have kept my heart pure, I am clean and without sin? Signs you may have a porn addiction. You live a double life. So, like I said, you're 10 years old, you look at something online, or a friend shows you something, typically it's a friend, an older brother's friend shows you something online. It spurs something in your brain, and it's the exact same chemical reaction as taking a hit of cocaine. Okay, so your little 10-year-old self watches this. Then you go home and you look by yourself, and it's scary what you're looking at. So you look at amateur porn, which is a little less scary. Then you need darker stuff. Then you need darker stuff. Then you need darker stuff. And then you isolate and isolate and isolate, and then compartmentalize and compartmentalize. So what I deal with is men who have completely double lives, who have separate bank accounts for their porn addiction, who have debts for their porn addiction, and their porn addiction has then led to using of women, to escorts, and flying on a business trip to Las Vegas. So it actually becomes a part, their addiction actually infiltrates every part of their life. It leads to sexual dysfunction. It can have preoccupation with porn where you miss work, you forget people's birthdays. One of my clients realized he had a problem because he completely forgot his wife's birthday. You have guilt and self-hate due to your porn use. You started looking at illegal pornography. Like I said, it gets darker and darker and darker because it's just like cocaine. You need more and you need more, you need more. And that stimulation needs to get darker and darker, more illegal, more illegal. And so I'm dealing with men who are looking at things that they're now literally incapable of forgetting. And they're having a really hard time just functioning, to be quite honest. If your partner no longer seems attractive to you, and like I said, you go into debt, or you have actual pain, and here's a picture for depression, fear, sadness, or disordered sleep patterns. So if you have any of those things, and you think you might have an addiction problem, there are some resources for you. Examine your community. As iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. So much of addiction leads to isolation. I meet with a lot of men who don't have community, they don't have friends, they don't have intimacy. And so their pornography and their addiction just festers and festers and festers. And so the second step is to get in community. There are addiction recovery groups here in Birmingham. There's 2 listed here. Get into a life group, get into a waltz group, get some accountability partners. I was talking to my brothers recently, and they told me that one of the hardest things about working this day and age with mainly men, because all 3 of them work with mainly men, is that they feel often ostracized or isolated for not speaking ill of their wives. Because they love their wives, they love women. They often feel like they're made fun of at work. They don't participate in locker conversations. They don't look at pornography with one another. They don't look at magazines with one another. And so there's a sense of sacrifice that happens. You may feel ostracized from your community. You may have people at work that you just can't be around a lot, and that's really difficult. But my brothers were like, the more I hung out with them, the more I gave into those temptations of talking about women like that, or talking about races like this, or talking whatever it is. And so it may require some sacrifices. So I highly recommend trying to find a work acquaintance that builds you up and encourages you and helps you love women and love your neighbor. Examine your surroundings. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. What can you do? You can learn more. There's lots of documentaries that you can go and look at. You can give financially. You can give to porn recovery programs. You can give to anti-trafficking organizations. You can advocate. And so you can become a board member of an organization. You can mentor junior high and senior high. One of the things that I tell women is that when you walk into a room as an adult and you're with junior high students, we women can tell the young girl who's having a hard time. We can tell very quickly if there's a young woman who's experiencing parents who are going through a divorce. We can tell if there's an emotional problem happening with a 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old. Traffickers can tell better. And they specifically pick out these girls. And they pick out these boys as well. And so by pouring into these young students, then you become a safe place for them when they have hard questions. And they don't go to these people for hard questions. Warning signs that an individual may be trafficked. There's physical abuse, marks, bruises, cuts, unexplained absences from class, sexualized behavior, tired in class, withdrawn, depressed, brags about making or having lots of money, less appropriately dressed than before, new tattoos. This is very real. Traffickers will brand their ladies or girls, typically older boyfriend and a different kind of lifestyle, up later at night parties, and then may show signs of gang affiliation. At the very least, if all you hear me say today is this, when you get that missing child's alert on your phone, please, please, please stop and pray that they will not come in contact with a trafficker. The statistic is within 24 hours, they will be. So please stop and pray I got one at 3:00 in the morning, and I stopped and prayed for whoever this person was, that they will come in contact with a safe police officer, with someone else who doesn't want to use them. But chances are they will. And they'll end up first in pornography and then in prostitution. So I want to leave you with some family resources. I don't know if any of you guys saw the Washington Post article that happened 2 months ago, no, last month, talking about the new statistics about teenage girls. 1 in 3 high school girls has considered suicide, which is a 60% rise in the past decade. At Covenant, I studied that women rarely have suicidal thoughts compared to, like, men are typically more prone to suicide and suicidality. This is a 60% jump from the past. Nearly 15% have been forced to have sex. These are high school girls. About 6 in 10 girls were persistently sad or hopeless. So I think that this is compounded with a lot of things. I think there's social media to play. I think expectations to be something that we will never be. But I also think that pornography plays a huge role in this. It teaches boys how to have sex, and then teaches girls what sex is. And then we're surprised when there's violence. And so one of the things that I'm really, really passionate about is helping teenage boys learn what consent is, talking with dads and sons about what God says sex is, how does God view women, how should we treat women, and what do you do if you see something violent? What do you do if you see something that scares you? What do you do if you start going down that rabbit trail? And then the third point is the women in your life. The number one thing you can do in anti-trafficking is love the women in your life. Treat them with respect. Treat them with kindness. Look women in the eye. I know that sounds silly, but it's not. Women need you. We really, really need safe men who love us, who treat us with respect, who we can go to, who are safe, specifically your daughters. I don't think that Jesus wants any of us to be imprisoned with our sin. I think he wants to see all of us free. And I think Satan just loves to manipulate you and isolate you until you feel like you are unlovable. And that's exactly what happens with my girls. My girls feel like they will never be loved, that they cannot be loved. And that's just not true. We have a God that loves us unconditionally, and he fights for us. So like I said in my Sunday school class, I'm sorry if I've been smiling and talking about really hard things, but I'm really passionate about this, and I want the church to be a safe place for girls, for women coming out of prostitution, for men who are struggling with sex addiction. I want it to be a safe place, and I want it to be more of a hospital where people can receive healing. I want to acknowledge 1 in 3 women have experienced sexual abuse, 1 in 7 men. And so if that's your story, then I want to acknowledge that and say that there is help here in Birmingham. I have a list of counselors that's in the link. If you're interested, you could also contact me, and I can help get you the counseling that you need. And so I have here some symptoms for PTSD. If you're noticing that some of these things are happening, if your memories are coming back, some weird things are happening, you're feeling emotionally numb, please tell someone. Get in contact with someone, because this is going to impact your family, it's going to impact your relationships, and also your relationship with the Lord.
ParentU is a ministry of Mountain Presbyterian Church. I'm Pastor Mark Long, and thanks for listening.